Slovaks, Slovenes, Serbs. Nearly half of Franz Josef's subjects were Slavs, who viewed their masters with sullen hatred and yearned for liberation. They looked for aid outside the Austrian Empire to the free Slav countries, the rising kingdom of Serbia and the Russian Empire, protector of Slavs everywhere. Tribal memories and tribal fears agitated all these people, whose borders stretched to Europe's edge. Russia would stand by the Slavs. Against Russia, Austria would need strong help. Germany had promised that help.
Whatever comes from the Vienna Foreign Office is a command from me.
Yet there were those in Germany who felt misgivings. In 1914, the German ambassador in Vienna said,
"I constantly wonder whether it really pays to bind ourselves too tightly to this phantasm of a state that is cracking in all directions."
But the Austro-German alliance was a fact, leading to inescapable conclusions. In 1914, the Kaiser noted,
"As a soldier, I have no doubt, on the basis of information reaching me, that Russia is systematically preparing for war against us. And I frame my policy on that assumption."
Russia also was a troubled anachronism. The Tsar of all the Russias ruled over countless millions of people. More than 130 millions of them had been counted in the census of 1897. How many more were contained in the deep hinterlands of the Russian Empire, none could say. This was the largest state in the world, a sprawling giant. Communications across it were primitive and difficult. During the thaw, almost impossible. A British diplomat wrote,
"No one can have the slightest idea what the country tracks in Russia are like during the spring and winter. It took me 16 days to traverse 80 miles.
Over these limitless distances, the Romanov dynasty, in the person of Nicholas II, emperor and autocrat, ruled absolutely. In 1895, answering a demand for more representative government, the Tsar said,
"Let all know that in devoting all my strength to the people's well-being, I shall preserve the principle of autocracy as firmly and as undeviatingly as did my father."
In 1905, Russia suffered humiliating defeat at the hands of Japan. The very foundations of Tsarism were shaken. The peasants, the vast, illiterate masses of Russian people, living on a chancy borderline of famine and ruin, rose in revolution. They found allies in the growing industrial proletariat. But the 1905 revolution was bloodily crushed. In 1906, the principle of autocracy was restated by the Imperial Council more firmly than ever.
To the Emperor of all the Russias belongs supreme autocratic power. Submission to his power, not from fear only, but as a matter of conscience, is commanded by God himself.
With this imperious rejection of democracy, the regime recklessly tightened the tensions, exasperated the feelings, and embittered the thoughts of the people. There were riots and strikes. A strike in the Lena goldfields was ruthlessly. The Tsar and his court consumed their time with simple pleasures, heedless of the Russian people. In Interior tensions were coming to the boil in this pious, passionate, intensely patriotic nation. And as they did so, external tensions also grew. The Balkans, where the Slav lands lay between the scowling frontiers of three crumbling empires, were their point of impact. In 1908, Austria, with outdated ambitions, annexed the Slav territories of Bosnia and Herzegovina on the borders of Serbia. Russia, still weak after defeat by Japan in 1905, let that pass. Then in 1912, the small Balkan kingdoms joined together to inflict a crushing defeat on the Turkish Empire. But they quarreled among themselves. Out of the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913, Serbia emerged as the strongest of the Balkan states, an inspiration for all Slavs. Austria watched her inconvenient progress with a jealous, calculating eye. The British ambassador in Vienna reported in 1913.
Relations between Austria and Russia are growing worse day by day. Serbia will one day set Europe by the ears and bring about universal war.
The French president, Poincaré, came to a similar conclusion.
Whatever be the issue, small or great, which may arise in the future between Russia and Germany, it will not pass by like the last. It will be war.
In Austria, the issue was clear. The Austrian Chief of Staff, Konrad von Hotzendorf, said openly,
We must crush this viper of Serbia.
By 1914, Europeans had learned to live with fear. And fear is the midwife of war. On Sunday, June the 28th, Europe entered upon her final, fatal crisis. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austrian throne, and his wife were visiting Sarajevo, capital of the recently annexed province of Bosnia. From Serbia, just across the border, a group of Slav terrorists had also come to Sarajevo, pledged to kill Franz Ferdinand. As the Archduke and his wife took their departure, one of these terrorists, a Slav schoolboy called Gavrilo Princip, fired 2 pistol shots. They hit Franz Ferdinand and his wife. A quarter of an hour later, both were dead. The peace of Europe died with them.